Yes. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Vancouver, wherever you're from. It is a pleasure and an honor to speak to you all today, and it's going to be a fascinating day or two for you. We'll be meeting new faces, getting new ideas, and I'll be talking about Vancouver and a bit about ideas today. But first, let me tell you about some of the people you've already maybe met. There's Google is here. You probably heard about the remarkable new innovation they have with driverless cars. But here at the conference, they're going to be discussing one of their radical new projects, which is to create cities without people. Everyone here is familiar with Google Maps, but Google has not just Google Earth, they've got Google Moon, and they've got Google Mars. It's kind of wonderful. And if you're looking for radical new ideas on urban planning, I suggest you go to Street View on Google Mars. We also have with us here today the Mayor of Kansas City, Sly James. Hello, sir. Sly, Wikipedia tells me that people in Kansas City like to abbreviate the city as KC. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. However, you need to know that people from Kentucky Fried Chicken, their marketing department, has found out that KFC is too difficult for people to remember, so they want to abbreviate their name to KC as well, and their lawyers will be contacting your lawyers on abbreviation rights. Amen.
Or small tariff.
Okay. Calgary's wonderful mayor is here. Naheed Nenshi, who I had the privilege of meeting last week in Calgary. Naheed, in a very short time, has rebranded Calgary much in the same way that Arcade Fire has rebranded Montreal. Naheed's new album, Warner Brothers, is out this week. The single that's now listing on iTunes. The single is called Generic Power Ballad, and Naheed will be selling CDs in the parking lot after the day's event. Vancouver's own mayor, Gregor Robinson, is here as well. Gregor is recently profiled in the spring 2012 edition of Sizzling Hot Mayors magazine. In this interview, he spoke about legislative processes, improving human relations, and of course, world peace. Gregor will be selling copies of his 2012 shirtless calendar in the parking lot. You will also hopefully be meeting Mr. Bob Rennie, who's a well-known art collector, and has a wonderful private museum in Chinatown that I really do urge you to go see if you can. Bob is also an artist in his own right in the way he creates remarkable buildings and projects that do seem to be intelligent living templates of how we're going to be building the 21st century. Less well known about Bob is that it was his elbow, not Steve Wynn's, that went through the Picasso painting in Las Vegas several years back, lowering the painting's value by about $40 million, or as we Vancouverites here think of as $40 million as a 3-bedroom fixer-upper, barbecue pit. Quickly, we have other people here. We have Simon Fraser's lovely Chancellor Carol Taylor here. Stephen Tuke is here from UBC. The mayors of Copenhagen, Quezon City, and Surrey's own Diane Watts. A quick shout out and thank you to Miro Cernetic and Mark Andrew of City Age for making this little magic thing come together. Digital culture, I found out last night which city in Canada has the highest per capita use of internet memory. The answer might surprise you. It's Fort McMurray, Alberta. It's all those oil guys downloading Shakespeare. So, welcome to Vancouver. A lot of you guys are out-of-towners. Welcome to the youngest city on earth. Welcome to the mountains, forests, the ocean, the neighborhoods. I grew up here. It's my home, probably always will be. Even at a young age, I was very lucky to be from here, and that ours was a city we're sharing with people like themselves. But all of you here today need to know that Vancouver is actually walking really deeply and rather ugly to the death battle with Melbourne, Vienna, Auckland, and Sydney over who gets bragging rights to be the world's most livable city. If you want to start a brawl here in Vancouver, just yell out loudly how efficient, user-friendly you thought the Melbourne trolley system was. or how delicious and affordable those pastries in Vienna were. Oh, hello, Auckland line 2. Having a water shortage, are we? Just number 1 red flag. Vancouver is a city blessed by nature and by history. It's possibly the youngest city in North America, that includes Honolulu. It's still growing, it's a work in progress, and has yet to become what it is eventually going to be. And you might be wondering, well, what makes Vancouver so distinct? And number 1, the city is hemmed in on all sides by snow-capped mountains, the U.S. border, and the Pacific. So it lacks the endless sprawl most American cities have, North American cities rather. Second, Vancouver missed the post-World War II frenzy of highway building. The city instead has become a city of neighborhoods rather than a city with a single core surrounded by a suburban donut. Third, we are multicultural here. The languages spoken most commonly in Vancouver in order are English, Cantonese Mandarin, 34%, Punjabi, 12%, Tagalog or Filipino, 5.5%, and Hindi, 5.5%. Vancouver is a very Chinese city. Gong Hei Pak Choi, Happy New Year's 2012, which is Year of the Dragon. And I'm sorry, Mayan calendar. Year of the Dragon totally kicks ass over your calendar. And forget that bogus into the world nonsense. You just ran out of stone to carve your numbers in. That's all. You'll notice in Vancouver that our new buildings have no 4th, 13th, 14th, 24th, 34th, or 44th floor. 4 equals death in Chinese, 7 is not quite death, but something similar. And it does make me wonder, you know, when they're back in ancient China deciding what to call their numbers, whose brilliant idea was it to say, like, okay, let's make 1, 2, 3, death, 6, kind of death. I mean, I wish they called for something a bit fresher and less hostile, like Smurf or Miami or The Breeze. To fly over Vancouver, you can tell the Asian neighborhoods by the red and blue ceramic clay tiles on the roofs. And you can also tell who's facing a really expensive reno by the orange and blue tarps over the roof as well. Welcome to Vancouver, which has many neighborhoods to explore. There's Kitsilano, where all the people with good bodies live. There's the West End right there, neighborhood facing English Bay, with lovely views, remarkable public garden, and quite a few bachelors. There is Yaletown, where so many of those new glass towers are that seem to be defining the new Vancouver. Back in 1986, had a studio there in an old loading dock I shared with a heavy metal band. Combined rent was $300 a month. I just found out recently that my old studio is now a cigar smoking room and is a GAP-rated restaurant. Times have changed. There are other neighborhoods to visit here. There's Main Street, Commercial Drive, there's Chinatown, Strathcona, UBC, East Vancouver, and oddly, our airport, which is the city's largest single employer and absolutely one of the world's best. And here's a tip. When you leave the conference and you're headed out of the airport, take the new Canada Line subway. You're going to love it, really. 20 minutes, it's clean as a whistle, takes you right to the gate, and it's faster than any taxi. You'll enjoy it. Send me a postcard and email. If you're a foodie, Vancouver is a restaurant heaven. You can go to a different restaurant every night for a month and not be disappointed. It's a combination of climate and organic mentality, multiple ethnicities. And Vancouver just demands more from its restaurants. You can also buy sushi at gas stations here. And even the most rudimentary of groceries has 10 different kinds of mushrooms. You may have heard that it rains a lot in Vancouver. This is true. And we love it because it's actually a very warm, gentle rain, and it's not like an eastern kind of rain. Most Vancouverites also know that sensation of disembarking from a jet plane at the airport, and you get that first hit of moist ocean air in your nostrils, and you just know you're home, you know how wonderful that feels. And of course there's Stanley Park right there, named after Lord Stanley, a long-dead English guy who it turns out never even visited Vancouver. For what it's worth, Stanley Cup was also named after Lord Stanley. Thank you, Wikipedia. Is Wikipedia here today? Stanley Park, by the way, is 1,000 acres, 10% larger than New York Central Park. It is home to the hollow tree, a 700-year-old red cedar killed by lightning. Since 1888, it has been a beloved Vancouver photo op. Now, in 1995, I was on a trip to Europe. I was checking my phone messages. I got this one from my mother. And it's like, well, hi dear, mom here. Constable so-and-so from the Vancouver Police Department called and asked if you'd parked your car inside the hollow tree before you went to Europe. And I said, I didn't think you had, but, well, I never really know with you. Here's his number, could you give him a call? So it turned out that my old 1971 VW Type 3 fastback had been stolen by these two guys and driven around. They got completely hammered in it. Not before they had actually duct taped moose antlers onto the hood over where the little VW logo went. They then passed out in the car with bottles of scotch in their laps. And I do mention this because Vancouver is the one city on earth where criminals might steal your car, strap moose antlers onto the hood, and then park it beside a 1,500-year-old hollow tree and pass out. And my question to my mother was, okay, is my life really so weird now that you're not sure if I would park my car in a hollow tree at Stanley Park before I went on holiday? Okay, being a young city, we've actually been able to stay relatively clean here. We have fewer toxic legacies than other cities. Vancouver has worked hard to become a leader in ecological politics. Air is important to us here. The ocean is important to us here. Outside the plaza right there, you've seen the digital orca. It's a piece that I did that we installed 2 summers ago. And its origins come from a story that did happen. I was driving through the Stanley Park Causeway one day, and I heard on AM 1130 that a gray whale had beached itself, or was beached on a beach in English Bay. So without hesitating, I drove over to see it. It was maybe 2 in the afternoon. It was sort of technicolor blue sky day, and already a fair crowd had gathered around the whale, which from the distance it looked like a boat had capsized. And I looked up close, and the skin was kind of charcoal gray and was covered in barnacles. And the mouth was open. I looked and I could see the baleen, the thin fibrous strands that they used to filter out large objects, and it looked like a broom. And what struck me about the whale was that you had all these people who'd been at work photocopying or having meetings or what have you, and maybe they heard about the whale beaching while they were in the cafeteria or listened to the easy listening station, then suddenly they just dropped everything and scurried off to see it. And men were wearing ties and women were dressed in their office clothes, and everyone was scrambling over the rocks, and some of them were, one woman snagged her pantyhose on a piece of driftwood, and one guy stepped in the tidal pool and got his leather shoes soaked by, I bet you $1 million that none of them really cared about that. You have here a city that is blessed by nature. I've written before that I grew up on one side of a chain link fence over the North Shore, and on the other side is this primeval forest that goes basically from here to the North Pole and then over into Siberia. And during the Olympics, I had a lot of visitors coming through town, and I was an escort for a lot of them. And we go up the Grouse Mountain gondola ride. You know, they'll say, Douglas, point out your house. And they oh, I thought you were being metaphorical when you said you grew up on one side of a fence. By the way, I shouldn't be saying this, but if you call Grouse Mountain ahead of time and say that you're making dinner reservations, you get it to go up for free. So that's going to end up on Twitter. Okay. Some of you may have been here before. Maybe this is your first time. Other way, you've probably been trying to get from A to B within the city and have said to the driver, come on, there has to be a faster way than this. Well, let me tell you, in Vancouver, there is no faster way than this. Unless you're using a bicycle, in which case you can simply load the bike onto the front of a bus and then you take that bus to wherever you're going. That was kind of a Zen joke. Again, Vancouver is probably the only city in North America with no freeway system running downtown, not even close really. In the 1970s, there was a freeway link proposed to Trans-Canada about 6.5 kilometers away. I was killed by a civic uprising, and that did mark the beginning of Vancouver's modern era unwillingness to make civic changes in the traditional ways. So let's talk a little bit about cities here. I'm fortunate that I get to travel a lot. I get to see a lot of places I wouldn't normally see. And there's something I did back in 1995. I'm not very proud of it, but I'll share it with you. I was going to do a talk in Ohio, and it was Columbus. And my publicist, Sarah, said, okay, let's do a joke. Tell them that Lord Douglas Coupland is coming. So I got there, checked in at 11:30 at night, and the woman behind the counter looks up at me and goes, and does this really... I have felt terrible for that for 17 years now. And then driving back to the airport the next night, it was a snowstorm. I looked out the window, and is that a Hostess factory, like Hostesses and Twinkies? And they had one of those old-fashioned used cell phones with a battery pack and everything. So I called my agent and said, Eric, have I been here before? And he's like, oh, twice. And there's a reason I'm going to tell that story, and I'll get to that after I tell another story or two. You got to stay here, this iPhone. If you look into TV and film and books, the entire history of science fiction, actually, with the exception of Dick Tracy's radio wristwatch, there's nothing in any of this fiction that predicts or anticipates this thing I got in my hand right here that you all probably have on your table right now. By the way, my brother got a new watch for Christmas. My nephew looks at it and says, well, that's really sad. It's only got one app. So, number 3, Bill Gates, who is one of the richest guys on earth. I think he still is the richest. Well, his best friends are all the richest, and the smartest people on earth. And you have these guys who are richer than anyone, smarter than anyone. They all get together and have bohemian groove, birch whipping parties and things. And what happens? And what happens is that they don't invent Google. What happens is they don't invent Facebook. They don't invent Twitter. They miss the boat on iPhones, which is all to say, the moral class coming later. It is very interesting that they astonishingly missed so much of the online and the download revolution. Now, genius ideas seem obvious when they happen. They only seem genius in hindsight. 20 years ago, I had told you, okay, here's the future. In 20 years, 30-second long clips of frolicking puppies and kittens will suck hundreds of millions of dollars into the global economy yearly. Even if you had believed me, would you have known how that was going to happen? The download revolution affects everyone, cities especially. Your new competition isn't that city down the river with 3 better hotels and a slightly better golf course. Your competition is now, for citizens and tourists, is World of Warcraft, it is Shakespeare, it is season-long binging lists of Breaking Bad and Downton Abbey. We do inhabit a world where people are addicted to novelty. We live in a world where fellow Vancouver writer William Gibson calls curated novelty. People are now addicted to difference. And I think difference is one of the new engines of the emerging economy. The places that people are going to want to visit are those places that spark their imagination, those places that maybe took a long, hard look at themselves to figure out, okay, what is it that makes us different? Then they threw money and energy and ideas at it to make those ideas pop. People want experiences that cannot be downloaded, however you want to define that. People want to see physical things, and they want to do things with their bodies. You can't download a Henry Moore sculpture, and you can't attach a ski slope to an email. Basically, my theory is take your fringe and make it into a fringe festival. I've been in a few cities in my time where they looked at themselves and thought, what makes us different? And then they amplified it. They became very interesting and visible in their own ways. There's Palm Springs, California, which has mid-century architecture and furniture, a large supply of bachelors, and a seemingly endless supply of groundwater with which to hose their golf courses. You have New Orleans, which I went to for the first time a year ago, April. Oh God, that place is fun. It's basically where Americans go to drink themselves to death without feeling judged. But there's this new kind of empathy for New Orleans here in the post-Katrina universe. And no trip there would be complete without an eco-touristic visit to the lower 9th Ward. And this is a trip that would be filled with what's for me genuine curiosity about what that city plans to do with itself next. And one image that does stick in my hand was quite remarkable. It was a row of trees that had been drowned by the floods. And inside all the branches all tangled up with Mardi Gras beads, and they looked like Charlie Brown Christmas trees just waiting for a little bit of love to happen. I think that's the way we see New Orleans right now. There's Detroit. Now, Detroit is emerging in what you might almost call an ecotourism destination where visitors inside the cars can witness what's basically a museum of collapsed ideas of the 20th century. I'm being a little bit facetious, but the world is actually very curious now about Detroit. Because everyone sort of sees themselves like, boy, if we don't play our cards right, we're going to be the next Detroit. And I hope that the people of Detroit are acknowledging this and that are realizing that the world is looking at them for guidance in a way they might never have anticipated. Let me ask you, what makes your city different? How different is your city from the nearest competitor? If people were going to choose between visiting your city and that other city, what city is that? And if they chose that city, why didn't they choose your city? What do you have there that is different? Do you have a large Ukrainian community? Do you have lobsters? Do you have comedians? Do you have muscle builders? Do you have apricots? Whatever you have, difference, difference, difference. Take whatever it is you have, throw money at it, find your fringes, turn them into festivals. And one way of looking at difference is to think of art. Art is sort of the difference, is the crystallization of difference that is formed within a solution of time and culture. I, by the way, am a big vocal supporter of consistent public funding for the arts. I do believe that a city without strong, consistent arts funding is basically a parking lot. It really is a psychic black hole, and it's what makes people look at a place in the map and go, yeah. So, before you cut these arts funding, ask yourself if you would really feel good if people might have been thinking of visiting your city, but instead decided to save some money and stay home and read Shakespeare or buy cookie jars on eBay. The difference is what defines humans as humans. This humanness is what novelist Michael Cunningham has called the opposite of art, and yet it is also the source of art. Now, here we are here in Vancouver. Let me get back to Columbus and Lord Douglas Coupland and the Hostess Factory. I would never be able to do the Lord Douglas Coupland stuff now because of Google. Where's Milo? Curfew. And if I were to go back to Columbus, I would really want to stay at a really good hotel. In the morning, I want to go rent a bike. And then I would want to go to the Hostess Factory, and I would want to see an 800-pound Twinkie inside a 50-square-foot Swarovski crystal coffin. And it's like the perpetual, never-decaying Twinkie. And lying in state, sitting there, and wow, that's what it looks like. But there would be no Twinkie cam, so you couldn't watch it at home. You'd have to actually go to Columbus. And because it's a time-based process, you'd have to come back years later, repeat visits, to see the Twinkie again. The thing is, you just can't assume anymore that Bill Gates of corporations is going to do your innovating for you. Those people, as you've seen, are as future blind as anyone else. In this new world of better cities and better people, the innovation is going to come from you. And you are here in Vancouver. I can't believe all the changes in the city my 4 decades here. Most of them have been really good changes. By the way, I went to Emily Clark University down on Granville Island. I'm very proud to say that 3 out of 5 Oscar-nominated shorts, animations, are from Emily Clark grads. And part of that is due to the guidance of Ron Burnett, who is here tonight. Ron, where are you? Ron, honestly, you saved that school from tragedy. Thank you. You did a wonderful job. Can I I'll say, Vancouverites, we tend to find our lack of historical baggage and luggage liberating. It dazzles us with a sense of limitless possibility. The mountains to the north and east of the city, they make people who aren't from here feel closed in, but here it's sort of a buffer that keeps us insulated from the past. My own theory about Vancouver is that we're all at our best when we're experimenting with new ideas, and we're at our worst when we ape the conventions of other places. Vancouver will one day be old and creaky, but not right now. Right now it's for us being young. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Have lots of new ideas. And don't forget that tomorrow is Groundhog Day, so get your Sonny and Cher records for 6 a.m. Thanks very much. Thanks for coming.